So good evening. Welcome to the last lecture of our fall series. And I am so honored tonight. We are closing the series with Liu Yichun, co-founder and principal architect of Atelier Deshaus. To speak of Liu Yichun's work is to engage with the critical intervention in the spatial politics of contemporary China. His architectural journey began at Tongji University, where he earned his master's degree in 1997. After a brief immersion in Guangzhou's rapidly developing urban landscape, he returned to Shanghai to serve as chief architect at Tongji's Architectural Design Institute. And that's a piece of new news for me when I was doing this research. I've known Yichun for a very long time, and I had no idea he was the chief architect at Tongji's Architecture Design Institute. And apparently, he was there also as colleague of Professor Lin from City Planning. So, you know, a lot of intricate kind of relationships and engagement with our Penn faculty. By the turn of the century, the millennium, which is 2000, year 2000, Liu, along with a small group of young professionals, was grappling with the schism between rapid commercial development and a more culturally resonant and personalized architectural vision. His response, which is departing from the State Institute, co-founding Atelier Deshaus in 2001, was a definitive act. And I think if you know about architecture, contemporary architecture scene in China, you know how important that act was. He joined China's first generation of private practices, a cohort that collectively claimed space for individual agency, constituted a new avant-garde subjectivity, and initiated a critical discourse to discover alternative identities of spatial philosophy within traditional modes of disciplinarian practice. And I know it very well because I feel very proud to say that we were among that first kind of generation of privatized, small, and I think in America you would call them boutique architectural design firms. Liu's early works, the Xiayu Kindergarten, the Jiading Kindergarten, articulated the synthesis through their reinterpretation of Jiangnan Garden courtyards and spatial sequences, rendered through contemporary form and material authenticity. Global recognition arrived with the Long Museum in 2014, where Liu transformed a 1950s coal hopper unloading bridge through profound dialogue with its industrial heritage. New construction and existing ruin create what he calls a structural scape, where past and present enter into tense material conversation. This project earned him the Architectural Review Award for Emerging Architecture and ultimately the RIBA International Award for Excellence, among many, many others, which I won't have time to name them. As current Kenzo Tange design critic at Harvard's GSD and visiting professor at Tongji and Southeast universities, Liu continues shaping the discourse he helped create. His structurescape methodology, while influenced by Japanese architect Sakamoto, remains rooted in discovering unexpected harmony between industrial ruin and civic life. Today's lecture, Re-Cultivating Industrial Sites, the Structure Shape of Time, will trace this remarkable trajectory, a path that transcends the binary of preservation and erasure and resists reductive East-West categorization. It is an exploration where temporalities are brought into collision, and a very interesting one at that, and where material past is reconfigured to critically inform and reshape our present. Please join me in welcoming Liu Yichun.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Rosanna for the invitation and the warmly introduction. It's a great honor to speak here in European. Tonight's lecture is titled Re-Cultivating Industrial Sites, the Structured Shapes of Time. Over the past decade or so, the adaptive reuse of industrial buildings and sites has been the design typology that Atelier Deshaus has engaged with most extensively. Naturally, this is closely connected to the broader transformation of China's urban development as it has entered a post-industrial era. Most of our industrial site renewal projects are concentrated in Shanghai, the primary base of our practice. In addition, I will present one project in Shaoxing, a city near Shanghai, another in Kunming in southwest China, and a project in Chengde, near Beijing in the north. Shanghai sits at the mouth of the Yangtze River. The Yangtze Delta has long been China's richest region and the heart of Jiangnan culture, known for gardens, waterways, and literary traditions. Cities like Suzhou and Hangzhou reflect this clearly, but Shanghai is different. It stands at a crossroads shaped by both Jiangnan culture and the West. Modern industry in China also began here. By the mid-20th century, Shanghai produced nearly a third of the nation's industrial output. Factories, shipyards, and warehouses lined the Huangpu River, the city's main transport artery. By 2010, when Shanghai hosted the World Expo, most heavy industry has already moved out. The Expo marked a shift towards urban renewal and the post-industrial future of Shanghai and even for China. It was at this time that our office began to work along the river. In 2011, we designed the Law Museum Westbound. Later came the Shanghai Modern Art Museum, the 8,000-ton silo art center in Pudong, and Riverside Passage in Yangpu. Each of these projects turned old industrial sites into new cultural spaces. This photo from 2008 shows the site of the Law Museum on the west side of the Huangpu River, later now known as the Westbound. At that time, the riverfront was still packed with warehouses and docks. The name Westbound was partly inspired by London's South Bank, and its renewal followed a clear strategy using culture to lead urban transformation, and the Law Museum became its first anchor. This is the Law Museum Westbound. We started design at the end of 2011, and it was completed in March of 2014. The site of the museum was originally a coal-uploading terminal built in 1929. The photo on the right shows the situation in 2011. When we began to design the project, most of the original dock facilities has already been demolished. In fact, in 2009, the site has already started construction for a tourist center program. 2 underground levels are completed, but the upper structure was never built. It was just stopped because of the expo in 2011. Underside the coal-uploading bridge, built around 1956, was still preserved. It is about 110 meters long and 8 meters wide. Here you can see the original design drawings as the tourist center. The basement uses a simple 8.4 by 8.4 column grid, mainly for parking. Because of the street earthquake codes in China, this grid usually continues above ground, so the columns, whether hidden in walls or left exposed, don't follow the program. They just hold up the floors and roof to create it a usable space. Here is a co-uploading bridge. It no longer works, but its structure still shows the scale of the trains and the co-loading system. It reminds us that using is making. Yeah. Using is structuring. Even when a structure loses its original function, a city may still choose to keep it. This shows that architecture can hold a value beyond use, a value that can cross time, even though it always begins with use. We were asked to design an art museum in such a site. Traditionally, museums evolved from palaces, and villas. Spaces organized as a sequence of rooms connected one after another. This room-to-room layout has long been regarded as the standard model of museum. Yet I often find such linear rows exhausting. I began to think the essence of exhibition art maybe is not the room, but the wall, the surface on which paintings are actually hung. From this thought emerged an idea, a plan composed not of continuous rooms but of independent walls. In such a space, visitors could move freely, wander at their own rhythm, and experience the artworks with a more conscious sense of ease and openness. I also hoped these independent walls could be structured. So they were placed along the existing column grid of basement. In this way, the spatial layout of the museum and the structural logic of the basement were brought into alignment. It became a design about adapting function and structure through the placement of the walls. These walls rise to form the roofs as well. Each unit consists of two parallel walls that enclose the old frame and extend upwards as a structural unit. I call it a wall umbrella. Together, the wall umbrella covered the exhibition space. The space between the two walls, showing in the pink color, houses the mechanical system. So structure, function, and the services space are all integrated into a single spatial and structural system. Since each unit is structurally independent, the gaps naturally let light in. This serves the exhibition function, yeah. But more importantly, it defines also the atmosphere. The entire space is built in exposed concrete. This model photo shows the relationship between the new and old structures. The new wall followed the original column grid, but they created a much freer exhibition space. In these drawings, the red line indicates the original structure, while the blue line represents the new structure. And on the left, the original frame is shown with parts removed in green. On the right, the drawing shows how the new wall umbrella units are inserted above and interlocked with the old frame. In the floor plan, the wall umbrella units appear simply as independent walls, but in fact, each wall is a structural umbrella, a vaulted covering. There were many possible ways to arrange the structural walls. In the final layout, we combined symmetry, rotation, and diagonal shifts, always keeping spatial fluidity in mind. By bringing these intentions into one system, a kind of simplicity emerged, echoing the old Fernald that still stands on the site. When we speak of covering as a tree or an umbrella, we are in fact invoking the human body, a metaphor grounded in bodily perception. From this perspective, traditional Chinese timber architecture and this concrete structure are not so different. That summer, while walking through a Jin Dynasty temple, I was suddenly reminded of the newly completed Long Museum. When the artificial lights are off, the diffuse natural light even gives the space a ruin-like feeling. This is a bird view of the building. You can see the river, the industrial remnants that pass through the museum. The new structure of the museum, along with the existing hopper uploading bridge, forms the public space leading from the city to the riverfront. Passing ships on the river form a surreal backdrop to this public space. On the facade of the museum, we can clearly see the structural and spatial composition of the architecture. Between the wall umbrella structures, a translucent facade system is formed by expanded aluminum mesh and silk-printed glass. This is the main gallery on the first basement level. This is the ground floor exhibition hall. It has held many kinds of exhibitions over the years. Each exhibition feels as if it were tailor-made, or they all respond to the space in their own way. So each one becomes unique. Even though the space is strong and always the same, people can still recall almost every exhibition that has taken place here. These photos show the activities of people inside and outside the building. It has become one of the most important art and cultural spaces in Shanghai. This is the Shanghai Modern Art Museum at Eastbound. It's also along the Huangpu River. It has a museum and an additional walkway. The site was once part of the Laobaidu Wharf, established in 1808, and later one of Shanghai's main coal ports since 1949. After 2008, it fell into disuse, and by the time we were invited in 2015, the coal silos were slated for demolition as the Pudong government developer Eastbound Group planned to replace them with a private gallery, which they considered the silo unsuitable for art exhibition. In these two photos, you can see that the roof has already been removed, and some of the coal hoppers had also been partly demolished. Because of the positive influence of the Long Museum's approach to preserving industrial remains, the Eastbound Group invited us to reconsider the project together to see if the program could be realized while preserving more of the existing structure, and to persuade the gallery to embrace this approach. Our first proposal was to stage an exhibition inside the right ruins of the coal silos. That same year, Shanghai launched its first urban space art season, introducing urban regeneration as the strategy goal for its new phase of urban development of Shanghai. As part of the program, I curated an exhibition titled Reloading, with focus on industrial transformation and included future proposals for this very building. For that exhibition, we built 2 small galleries of plywood and gypsum board inside the ruin, while the space beneath the hoppers became a multimedia gallery. This showed the gallery that the coal silos were not only usable but offered a distinct exhibition space, paving the way for our renovation proposal to proceed smoothly. While curating this exhibition, I experienced the unique sense of time with the ruin-like space and the joy of seeing an abandoned structure return to use. In contemporary buildings, structure is often concealed by system and finishes, but in a ruin, structure reappears, elemental and clear. Columns, walls, and beams regain their presence. And in ruins, there is also a certain disregard of completeness and for the usual rules of systems, something we can hardly ever achieve in design. It's a kind of freedom that returns after being lost. At the same time, what the art historian Alois Riegel called age value begins to surface, a sense of time embodied in the structure itself. This experience led me to think more deeply about how structure and time are intertwined, or connected. Yeah. In the new design, we used a large roof truss placed on top of the original columns. From it, new spaces are hung down and cantilevered around the edges. This allowed us to add new exhibition space without cutting into the old structure and without building new foundation on the riverside wharf. It saved both time and costs. This structural model shows how we carefully balanced the relationship between new and old structure. They form a new whole, but each still keeps its own clarity and integrity. During construction, watching the new structure wrap around the old one remind me the artwork by Christian and Jim Cloud, wrapped trees. In the image in the right, the red part shows the original structure and the blue part shows the new structure attached to it. The red part represent the original structure surrounded in all sides by newly suspended exhibition spaces. And at the center of the floor plan is an open-up coal silo, now turned into a unique exhibition space. On the ground floor, the coal hoppers above form a special center hall beneath them. The hall can host a variety of events. On the second floor, the space between the coal hoppers also serves as a spatial exhibition gallery. This is the interior view of the exhibition space inside the coal silo. This is a large exhibition hall on the top floor. It can be directly reached from the ground floor via the original straight-run outdoor stair. The horizontal lines on the facade echoing the flowing character of the Huangpu River. These suspended structures also add exterior open space to the building. They offer wide, unobstructed views toward the Huangpu River. The outer ramp turns the building's platforms into public spaces that are open to 24 hours a day in continuous all the way up to the roof, making the entire structure accessible as a whole walkable landscape. As far as the Shanghai Tower, the tallest building in China, whether the museum is open or not, people are able to walk through the building from one side to the another. When the light come on, the old structure emerges within the building. A ruin-like industrial relic lies hidden inside, and its contrast shapes of a form of time. To the north of the art museum are cafes and art shops. Transformed from the original coal channels is also a public park. These are the old coal channels. We attached a light steel structure to the old frame, both highlighting its presence and forming a new whole instead of usual perpendicular secondary beams. We used string beams running parallel to the old frame. The result seems to floating in the air while emphasizing and distinguishing the existing beams. The glass boxes suspended from the old structure, from the new steel string beams are flexible and retail spaces. The new structure seems to be just suspended there. The existing structure seems just like it right here as natural. On the rooftop is an elevated walkway to see the Huangpu River. We hope that a newly built building can feel as though it has been there for a long time. It is not only a part of an art museum, but rather a part of the city and a part of the river. This is also a renovation project on the east side of Huangpu River. It is known as the 8,000 ton silos for the grain storage, which was the largest one in Asia. It is also called the Minshen Valve. This is a picture before renewal. In 2017, the building was chosen as the main pavilion for the Shanghai Urban Space Art Season. With a total height of 48 meters, the exhibition needs to use both the top and the bottom level of the silos. So the design just focuses on creating a clear circulation and opening the enclosed silo while preserving their original spatial character exterior appearance. We eventually add an external glass-wrapped escalator, which both organized the circulation and created a new openings between the building and the Huangpu River. Visitors can appreciate the view from different heights throughout the lifting process. In the diagram, the blue lines show the new addition. As you can see, the intervention on the existing grain silo is very minimal, just an external glass staircase and a few vertical cords for circulation and fire escape. This sloped walkway can lead visitors from the riverfront directly to the top of the building. The cantilevered glass escalator makes the warehouses vibrant again. This becomes a new spot to watch a riverside sunset. This is the exhibition hall on the ground floor, and this is a Prada show was staged in this space. And one silo was open and a spatial sloped space to enter the top floor hall. The renovation construction, since it's quite minimal, so it just only took 5 months to build it. This is the Riverside Passage, or its Chinese name is Bianyuan, which means the Age Garden. It's a small landscape intervention along the Huangpu River in Yangpu District. It's located in northeast of Shanghai. This site was once a high-pile coal valve built in 1973 for the Yangshupu gas plant. Two 9-meter long, 4-meter high concrete walls lined the wharf to keep the coal from splitting, falling into the river. After the plant closed in 1999, the riverside wall was demolished in 2001, and the broken pieces was dumped into the gap between the wharf and the flood wall. This image is just from different periods shows the transformation of the wharf. On my first site visit in 2018, I was struck by the presence of the long remaining weathered wall. Wild grasses and trees grow on the rubble of the collapsed wall where fragments, water, and plants come together to form a landscape that is wild yet quietly powerful. The design of Riverside Passage sought above all to preserve old elements, not only to reduce carbon emissions, but also out of the belief that even ordinary remains can enrich a renewed environment. This diagram shows the condition of the wharf in 2011. The red line indicates the position and scale of the remaining wall on the wharf. In this diagram, you can see that we made small cuts in the remaining wall. These cuts allowed us to attach a lightweight steel structure and add a row of openings that connected both sides of the wall. The new steel structure showed in blue merged with the old elements in red to form a new hull. It recognized the wharf so that space revolves around the remaining wall rather than being divided by it. One might say that the inward-looking logic of Chinese gardens has here been compressed into an outward-facing public strategy, one shaped by a weathered wall. On the original ground, a polished sports court-like surface gently invites activities such as roller skating and more. This section drawing shows how minimal our intervention was on the wharf. Both the demolition and new construction were kept to a bare minimum. This approach required us to first identify the site's specific features and hidden potentials, which in turn helped reduce the carbon emissions across multiple aspects. In the end, the entire 5,000 square meters public space was completed with a budget of just 1.778 million RMB. This photo shows how the new structure joins the old slender steel columns, a sloped roof, and a tall corridor, and a polished ground together created a space that is at once pavilion or a balcony or a passage where one can stay or simply just pass by. Behind the wall lies a secret ruin garden. In the distance, the smoke stack of the former power plant serves as a backdrop to the landscape. On the other side of the narrow gap stands a shorter wall, the flood wall, which in fact also forms part of the structural composition of this project. In testing the single-pitched roof and its cantilever, we found that the nearby flood wall subtly stabilized the structure against the wind, making it more than just an enclosure. Though this interplay can be understood intellectually, the body can also sense such hidden relationship on a subconscious level. This sloping roof creates a connection between the two sides of the wall. The outer side offers a more expansive sense of openness and serves as a space for more public activities. The inner side, by contrast invokes a spatial quality more akin to that of a traditional Chinese garden. Yet it is a ruined garden deeply rooted in the industrial history of the metropolis. The broken remains were deliberately preserved and made legible in the garden. This old concrete wall, still standing with its weathered surface, creates a strong sense of atmosphere. The fragments carried by the river and washed by the tides strangely recall the scholar stone of Suzhou. This made me think about Walt Benjamin's idea of aura, and yet I'm never sure, is it the cultural link that produces the aura, or the aura that makes us feel the link? What matters, perhaps, is that this atmosphere allows us to sense a cross of time. This is a ruined garden shaped by time. This is another transformation project of a former intake facility in a historical water town, not just buildings, but the entire island once enclosed to the public that has been transformed into a shaped public space. This is a typical Jiangnan water town landscape. The small island in Jianhu Lake, once closed to the public, served as the water intake for the Keqiao local water works. Built in 1992, the intake facility once has 6 structures, including a pump house, substation, offices, dormitory, and 2 docks. After it was abandoned in 2001, the site was renewed in 2022, with the buildings transformed into a bookstore, a cafe, exhibition hall, and pavilion. The intake pavilion now also functions as a boat dock, and the whole island has become a public park. These existing buildings are typical of China's 1980s to 1990s tiled architecture, some with postmodern style gables. In recent urban renewals, many such kind of white tiled facade has been replaced for more fashionable look. These buildings, which I once dismissed when I was a college students even call it ugly, now it feels sincere and time warm in a way that makes sense over time. On site, I decided to preserve part of their original appearance, believing the tile could take on a new meaning and even the decorative gable might return as a real structural element. The substation was partly dismantled and partly preserved. During demolition and stripping, I noticed that the tile here has aged differently from those those concrete wall in Riverside Passage. In fact, tiles as a sintered material are resist to time, but the joints shift slightly and the tile can peel away from the wall, revealing layered traces of aging. Through the bricolage and reuse, new materiality can emerge from this old fragment. This diagram shows the original layout of the intake facility. The area marks in green indicate the parts designated for demolition. The blue line indicate the new structural additions and roof coverings attached to the original structures, which are shown in red color. This color code diagram illustrates the merged state of the new and original structure. Without heavy intervention, this place has become more connected to local daily life and landscape culture while still preserving its historical traces of the infrastructure of a city. These slender steel colonnades, much like those at Riverside Passage, act as a bridge grounded in industrial rhetoric, yet resonating with the spatial language of tradition. They stand as a quiet and unified presence. These slender steel columns and the long ceramic tiles, though different in form, recall the same industrial memory. Together, they embody a cultural time that still feels close and coherent. Some parts of the old tiled facade were patched with new silver tiles, while some parts were stripped of their original cladding to deconstruct or dissolve their symbolic surface forms. A strongly symbolic eave profile hinting as a pitched roof was also preserved there. The hosting frame of the cargo pier was transformed into a waterfront cafe pavilion. The pavilion sits across the water facing the traditional riverfront dwellings. The substation was capped with a tent-like steel roof that rests on a horizontal corridor forming a continuous and fluent spatial system. The structure connects several different buildings on the island and encloses small courtyards, creating spaces for reading, gathering, and social interaction. The curved form of the roof invokes certain associations with the traditional architecture, yet its construction logic is entirely different. Its form fits well with the shapes of the surrounding trees. The new roof lands precisely at the point tip of the symbolic gable of the former substation. This is the original interior of the palm house, where old palms and new bookshelves now share the same space. The corridor extends the bookstore while also becoming part of the island park. The pavilion was built on the original intake facilities structure, including the bridge that links with the island. The old steel water pipe now serve as structural elements supporting the bridge, which functions as a pier for visitors arriving by boat. Looking toward the riverside dwellings of the water town from the viewing pavilion on this pier. This former municipal water intake island on Jianhu Lake now seems to have acquired a sense of historic city. This is a pavilion that has just been completed recently in Kunming, Yunnan of China. It is located on the shore of Kunming's well-known Dianchi Lake, which has suffered from pollution for many years. In response, the local government created the Laoyuhe wetland park and planted large numbers of metasequoia trees to further filter the treated waste water before it flows into the lake. As a result, the area appears to be a natural landscape, yet it also functions as an important piece of urban infrastructure. Laoyuhe in Chinese means the river where you can catch fish. As the ecological environment has improved, many small fish have returned to the wetlands, and people often come here to catch them. Last year, the Kunming city government held an art festival in this area. As participating architects, we were invited to design a pavilion that would serve both as the entrance to the festival and as one of the gateways to the Laoyuhe Wetland Park. Building a pavilion at the edge of a waterside forest immediately remind me of many traditional Chinese landscape paintings in which a small pavilion often appears along within vast mountains and rivers. For example, the Ming Dynasty, this painting by Nizan, 秋庭家树图, which means autumn pavilion and fine trees. Within the immensity of the scene, the pavilion is just a tiny point, yet it is given a prominent position in the composition. This tiny structure anchors the viewer's position and thus becomes the locus of subjective experience in Chinese landscape culture, what we call shanshui. Shanshui means mountain and water. So this should be called Lao Yu He Pavilion with metacoya trees. This is Nizan's Rongxi Zhai Tu. The whole painting is also centered on a very small pavilion. The pavilion has a simple, almost primitive form with a slightly curved thatched roof. It shows a quiet connection between the small building and the surrounding nature, and this connection gives the painting its emotional power. Going back to our pavilion, I began to wonder whether I could use modern materials such as steel to create something like the feeling of a thatched roof or a sense of broken ruin-like texture. A simple idea was to break the roof into many pieces so that it could produce a similar kind of sensation. We used prefabricated mechanical elements to connect each pieces of the roof that had been disassembled in the factory. This is outside looking of the pavilion. In fact, we used this structural approach to create the feeling of being inside a forest. Under the pavilion, as you are in the woods. Just some pictures. It's I just call it a structurescape of forest. The final projects I share today is the upper cloister at Jinshanling. The site carries a particular complex history. It is marked both by the ancient presence of the Great Wall and by the traces of modern labor. The client, Aranya Group, invited us to design a cloister as a meditation space for the community. In this history of Chinese temples, Buddhist cloisters have always been places for self-cultivation and introspection, as well as for dialogue with nature and landscape. Through perceiving the natural scenery, people are able to transform their experience into literary imagination and into reflection on life and conduct. The site is in Chengde, to the northeast of Beijing, facing a length of the Great Wall from the Ming Dynasty. In the meantime, it is also facing Beijing. This special location also reminds me of the Foguang Temple from Tang Dynasty on Wutai Mountain in Shanxi Province, also north of China. As it faces the valley, it is also facing the remote capital at that time, Chang'an City. This is not a coincidence, but intentional at that time. Today, the site is best known for its Tang Dynasty timber hall atop the platform. But what truly moves visitors is the way that it opens towards the valley and catches the glow of sunset. Its spatial sequence, the courtyard below, and terrace in the middle, and the main hall above, is entirely composed to lead towards that final moment of reaching the high platform and witnessing the glow like a glimpse of Buddhist light in the west direction. The Araya project site was jointly selected on location with the client, considering both orientation and setting. We chose a former working ground in the mountains, marked in red above, once used for illegal coal mining and hillside terracing for fruit trees. Now abandoned, the land has returned to a wild, untouched state. The building occupies the damaged hillside left by coal mining, serving as an architectural act of repair. This is a bird view after its completion. We can clearly see its spatial composition includes three-part square, a cloister on the upper level, a terraced building following the slope, and the square hall with a skylight beneath. The design draws inspiration from the spatial sequence I just said, Foguang Temple, from the courtyard, a gathering and inward space, to the terrace where the body engages more closely with the slope, and finally to the main hall, a purpose for formal space that opens suddenly to the distant view. This composition adapts to the valley's terrain while establishing a rhythm of compression and release, 框奥, open and close, in the experience of landscape. Unlike Foguang Temple, upward procession, the upper cloister unfold from top to bottom, defined by the point of arrival. This inversion also gives the project its name, is upper cloister. These drawings show how the building negotiates the site. The volumes follow the topographic lines and anchor themselves into the rock formations. This is the entryway. We can see that the courtyard on the upper part looks very enclosed from the outside, but when we entering the courtyard, one will find it open to the sky and the mountains as far. The courtyard of stones is enclosed with a sloped roof of thin steel plat and concrete walls. The slender steel pillars that carries the black steel plates roof also support the concrete roof. Here, the eaves corridor of steel plates compressed the pillar corridor onto the concrete wall, reducing its width to 0, transforming it into I just call it a pilaster corridor, or as I just call it, eaves corridor. The eaves corridor provides an atmosphere and a frame of the landscape of the mountains and the sky. As the sun set over the rocks at the summit, revealing why this area called Jinshanling, why it's called Golden Ridge, the name of the place. When the sun sets, the peaks here are dyed golden. So this is a Buddha hall next to the stone courtyard. You can see a natural stone sculpture outside the window. These working models show how the stepped volumes follow the terrain. Each 1.6 meter drop blurs the boundary between architectural scale and the topographic scale, recalling the terraced fields once cultivated by local farmers for the fruit trees. The 1.6 meter terraces also created a spatial interior experience, since this height is close to a person's eye level. So the opening's height suggests the scale of sitting close to the ground, invoking a cave-like sense of enclosure. The visible concrete box inside is actually the meditation room's front courtyard. It creates the feeling of being held within the mountain itself. These are some private meditation rooms. This is the reading room and its courtyard. At the lowest level is a main meditation hall, designed as a pavilion with a curved roof supported by slender steel columns. From the outside, its thin columns and light roof make it resemble a tent. Yet this place lies north of the Great Wall. It means historically known in China as the land Guanwai. Yes, beyond the passes. Once it's a home to nomadic tribes. Yeah, nomadic tribe also. Yeah, they lived in the tent. The plan of the meditation hall draws inspiration from the layout of the east main hall of Foguang Temple, adapting the Jingxiang Dou Di Cao. It's just a structural based on two concentric rings of columns. In terms of structural performance, these inner and outer rings of columns provide the slender columns with much better lateral stiffness. Yeah, such a structural form recalls the classic composition of roof, columns and beams and podium, as historian Lin Huiying, who was just belatedly awarded her architectural degree here in UPenn just last year. She just described in 1932 these are the three essentials of Chinese timber architecture. The roof, columns and beams, and podium. And together they form the character 舍, the Chinese character 舍, which also happens to be the name of our office. This house. But this meditation hall was built entirely with contemporary technology. Slender steel columns, only 5 centimeters thick, and a digitally prefabricated carbon fiber roof. The system allows precise factory production and quick on-site assembly, minimizing the disturbance to the mountain environment. The roof is divided into load-bearing groups of honeycomb sandwich panels. The CNC robots can accurately process each of the honeycomb curved PU foam. It is wrapped with carbon fiber to become a sandwich structure, prefabricated and assembled in the factory. And the carbon fiber roof finished on site with quickly in one day, and also finished on site with paint, shared the same surface texture as the steel column, so people cannot tell what material it is made of, just like a tent quietly hidden in the valley. But when a slight snowfall arrived, the honeycomb structure of the roof suddenly appeared, unexpectedly revealing its structurescape. This is the view from within the main meditation hall towards the valley and the Great Wall. The Buddha statue and the landscape behind created a silent atmosphere. It seems all the arrangement is just for this moment, just like the sunset moment on the terrace of the Foguang Temple. Seen from below the concrete, the stone walls and natural cliffs, the architectural materials are the decomposition of the colors and elements of natural stones. Then the architecture merged into the topography. Halfway up the mountain, the traces of a small coal mine remain, a fragment of mining past inscribed in the landscape. On the site of the coal mine, we preserved one of the shafts and add a small bell pavilion and the wall stand, turning it into a distinctive landscape feature. The landscape in snowy weather. Winter at Jinshanling are long, but more often the valley is veiled in clouds and mist. I named this meditation hall Yunqitang, just means a hall of rising clouds. The painting on the right, Qingluan Qiusi Tu, shows how architecture gives presence to humans and time to nature. In the valley, the upper cloister creates a similar dialogue with the Great Wall and landscape. The upper cloister, the Great Wall, the mountains, and even the fragment of a small coal mine together composed a structured shape of time. To end this, there's a short film offers a brief look into the first 4 Riverside Facade project in Shanghai. I've just captured their landscape and how they are used in daily life. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much for a beautiful and thought-provoking lecture. We will take a few questions, maybe 2 or 3. If you raise your hand, we have microphone.
Hi, thank you so much for this presentation. And it was a lot of nice projects that I personally have been to. And I was, so like every time I do see this Weitzman area and also all the other renewal projects in Shanghai gets more and more vibrant over the years. So I was there's like a few more questions that I'm curious. So first of all, when you were, because I know, let's say Westbound Museum as well as all the other museums around the river was one of the few projects that gets developed as a part of like all the like urban renewal projects. Let's say when you're first getting in touch with those, were you expecting this level of openness to public, or let's say was that part of the vision, or if not, so how were you, I guess the question is, how were you thinking about the relationship between the potential audience that the architecture was going to bring and into part of your design? And let's say there's like a new project that you were able to get in touch again. Is there anything you want to add to your design thinking? And that's something about like my background. And another one is like there's multiple times that you talk about the ruinous quality of the structure and architecture that's for an existing building, and how do you think what level of potential that those existing structure that they got that the new buildings doesn't, and how those pre-existing structure, the ruinous quality to it, were some let's say just how precious that is that you think that's gonna bring to the city.
You speak Chinese, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Professor Liu, he had wanted me to translate the questions, but since you speak Chinese, why don't you translate your own question? So it's easier.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you condense them to go one by one, because they're very long. So start with the first question, let him answer. And if he chooses to answer in Chinese, I can translate to English, but
Okay.
start with just one. Okay.
就是因为，我本人就是会经常就是去，相当于说是西安美术馆，或者是西安就是整个滨江的，规划嘛，就是每次去的时候都会觉得它很不一样。然后每次去的时候，就是有一些新的，你会发现它更 open，就是更对于公共来说，就是它更 accessible 了。我是想问的是，就是在设计的初期，它是规划的一部分嘛？就是它现在的开放性。 如果就是当时设计的，比如说现在的现状会比他当时更开放的话，如果你有一个机会，就是比如说我去再次审视我自己的设计，或者是我再去想说，我是如果接到了一个新的设计，会不会有新的元素或者新的是我会需要去考虑的。
首先就是西岸是整个黄浦江的一个，就是从工业河流转换为城市的这个公共景观性河流的一部分，所以西岸的沿着黄浦江的整体的规划就是要打造出一个城市的公共空间。
I'm sorry, I have really bad memory, so we'll do a few sentences at a time. So you all heard the question phrased in English and the answer about the openness of the original urban kind of planning initiative. The answer is that the premise of the entire kind of Westbound project was meant to be kind of opening up that area, the before kind of industrial relic, into something that is much more open to civic life.
所以在这样的一个前提下，其实建筑师的工作就是告诉公众或者是业主，在这样的一个江边的公共空间应该怎么去设计。它怎么样设计就可以变得更加的公共，或者对公众更加的友好。那么在这个里面，其实就是保留更多的工业遗产，其实是我特别关注的一个方面。我觉得这是一个城市的重要的记忆。
So I see the role of the architect who is going to work in such a place in the city and kind of taking the attitude of facing the relic that has been remained in the city. I saw my job as one that needs to open up that area to more public life. And so that I took that as my mission as a start.
所以在这个过程当中，我就觉得就是保留那些工业遗产，跟就是保留这个城市的记忆，或者说这个城市的时间切片中的重要的组成部分，这件事情对我来说特别有意义。同时，对于这个江边的这种公共空间来说，也是特别有意义的。我觉得越多的这种时间性在这个公共空间里面的存在，我觉得更加有利于这个空间的公共性的表达。
And so from the start, I saw it very important to and meaningful to retain the traces of time that's left in the industrial relic, and also for me to reveal that past, that industrial past. And the revealing of that industrial past became purposeful in also achieving that kind of civic openness that the initiative had called for.
可以吗？
非常感谢。
Thank you, Professor Liu, for the sharing. And I have a question about I think it's relating to identities, because I'm also from the Jiangnan region. And then I have the memories as when I was young, like almost like the Jiangnan style of, like, which means like the South River's Chinese style of building, built by bricks, tiles, and wood and walls, right? And then I just wonder, like, can you share me your picture of like how the Jiangnan style of architecture is gonna be in the future, especially for metropolis regions? For example, like, does it remain like how it is in the old time, or do you think it's gonna integrate it a little to like industrial kind of typologies? Thank you.
Then you can speak in Chinese. Translate for me.
哦
Let me to
就
show
是
your time.
我是杭州人，然后也是就是从小就是看江南建筑长大嘛，然后我看江南建筑就是非常传统，有白墙，然后通过砖头打造，然后有这种砖头然后有那种漆在上面，然后还有木头斗拱那种结构。 然后我就想知道，就是你能不能分享一下你对于江南建筑在城市里面那种未来的想法，就是它还是会保持原样吗？还是说更加的工业化？还是说会有不一样的想法在？
就对我来说，就是传统或者是一个地方的地方性的特征，从来不仅仅是那些材料，或者是颜色，或者是这种样式，而是一种在这种表面现象背后的一种地方性的传统。这种东西，我相信我在我的建筑当中，其实都在表达这样一种，它不是一个视觉的形象，而是一种氛围的一种，或者是一种感受。
So I've always believed that tradition is a question about how one interprets or kind of foresees tradition in the future, right? So the answer is that I've always believed tradition is way beyond just the material presence and understanding, that it's a lot more meaningful to kind of reinterpret and rediscover things that are beyond what you see. And there are certain kind of aspects of, he used to, I think in the Chinese word he uses more more accurately translated in atmospheric, but I think what he means is probably spiritual, and the essence of kind of that material presence should be kind of reinterpreted in ways beyond what you can see with your naked eye.
我相信就是地方的传统，它只有通过非常个人化的感受和理解，才能转变为新的设计的可能，或者新的传统的可能，或者说一种可以被延续的一种传统的，但是面向未来的、面向新的建造性的一个新的建筑。
And for one, such as myself as an architect and designer, to rediscover or reinterpret one's culture or identity, it has to go beyond the form or the concreteness of form, and oh, yeah. So it has to be kind of internalized and then personalized. So it's not a generalized statement, but what I was doing is to kind of use my own subjectivity and my own understanding of what that tradition is, and not generalizing historicism, but kind of personalized and internalize what my subjectivity gives me as a clue and creative endeavor.
Oh, okay, so thank you, Professor Liu, thank you for the fascinating presentation. So I think besides for the practical experience, I may more want to talk about your experience for the studying tour, like from the university to Penn. So welcome to Weitzman. And as far as we know that you have been teaching in the US for a short time. And I learned through the various social media and college websites that the KJ method, which derived from Japanese anthropologist the Kawakita Jiro, is what the current way you are using. So I would like to know how this method can be specifically applied to the sites for students, and by using the KJ method for classification, how to analyze the different objects on site and discover the pattern. 所以
你别把那个麦离开，就是一直搁在嘴边。
Sorry，很感谢您的演讲，所以我想就是想了解一下，就是您赴美教学已经有这么一段时间了，然后通过各个社交媒体和学校的官网，我们了解到您在就是教学的运用当中用了一个叫 KJ 法的这么一个教学模式，所以我想了解一下，就是该方法是如何运用于场地的，然后学生通过在现场分析不同物体，并在现场 找出规律的这么一个提取信息的这么一个方式是如何使用的？
这个其实可以，这个 search 一下 ChatGPT，it will tell you more about 。KJ method 是一种人类学家，然后在进行田野调查的时候，他通过对现场的那种现象的提取，然后通过一个不同的人，就一组人，然后去共同去对某一个现象去进行分类和这个归类的找出规律的一种方法。
First, he said that maybe using ChatGPT will give you a more comprehensive answer, but this methodology or this kind of field research, and it's an investigatory kind of site methodology from anthropology, where a small group of field researcher we go and discover things that is related to a site.
然后我在 GSD 教学就是设定的那个题目是一个法国的中世纪的小镇，然后我带学生去现场，就是学生们根据从现场从不同的既有这个线上的信息，也有现场的信息，有关于经济的、人口的、这个地方建筑风格的，然后气候的、环境的等等等等。那么所有这些观察到的现象，然后通过小组去进行分类抽象，然后找出他们觉得对他们来说设计重要的东西，然后往前推进设计。
So it's basically the methodology that I have employed right now for my teaching at the GSD is asking the students as that small group to find and research different information that they can find online or at site to discover and explore various elements and collect that data to help them engage with the site in their design work.
OK，
Hello, thank you for the lecture. Thank you for the lecture. I learned a lot, I'm gonna say. And I do have a question, I think. The question is like kind of related to the previous one. Question is about I'm super interested in how you make decisions about materials like colors and form. I feel like no matter what material you use, you always manage to convey a similar atmosphere. Just like what you mentioned, like the feeling behind the surface matters most. So I'd like to ask, what kind of atmosphere or underlying concept are you trying to communicate through your work? So if I translate in Chinese, 就是我觉得您的项目，您的这些项目，我觉得您在材料上选择还有颜色、形式上的决定都非常的有意思。我觉得您不论在使用各种材料，都能表达出相似的感受。就像您提到，在表面现象背后的氛围很重要。所以我想问问，就是您觉得您想给大家展示的氛围或者是概念是什么样的 ？Thank you。
这个可能取决于每一个项目所处的不同的地点和环境。比如说，在整个江南的这个区域里面，我会比如说去表达某种轻啊。那么如果去表达某种轻的时候，我可能会用比较细的柱子啊，比较薄的屋顶等等。那么轻是一种感受，是我对江南的一种理解。对。
So there are very different things that I want to evoke in my kind of conceptual understanding of each project. And for the Jiangnan region, for me, it was essential to focus on the idea of lightness. And and for me personally, it's my it's what I want to emphasize on for that region in Jiangnan, the idea of lightness and the atmospheric kind of feeling and construction of lightness.
那又比如说龙美术馆，它因为在一个旧的这个运煤的码头上，然后有很重的这个混凝土的这个运煤的这个卸载桥，所以我会用混凝土的材料去跟它去产生一些关联性，但是同时也用了比较重的结构，但是这个结构可能又会表达出一种轻盈的感觉。
And for Long Museum, of course, it's based on kind of that history of the coal mining and the coal delivery. And so for me, the aspect of maybe obviously the structure is heavy, and we are dealing with, kind of the bulkness of concrete as a material, but that heaviness is then kind of interpreted into a certain lightness within its articulation.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, thank you. And I think he's very hungry. It's time to go to dinner, and thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you for